The Premier League champions are coming to Lincoln, but no time for that now. It's all eyes on Stadium NK. Can the Imps make it 5 out of 5? Yes, hello there and welcome along to our second Matchday Live of this season. This is a brand new show that we'll be bringing you before every Lincoln City EFL fixture this season. Really delighted to have your company alongside us this afternoon. Please do get your comments in throughout the show and I will do my best to read them as and when I can. We've got a great show coming up for you this afternoon. We'll be hearing from the manager, Michael Appleton, the captain, Liam Bridcut. We'll also be going stateside as well to hear from a North American imp. Plenty more on that later on in this show. Delighted too to say that Gary Hutchinson joins me from his Sinsel Bank bar after a solid start to this season as well. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. Nice to be here.
Delighted to have you back on. What have you made then to the Imps start to this season? It's getting better and better, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's hard not to be optimistic, I think. What a week as well. 7 goals and a clean sheet. Playing well, we're seeing both sides of the team as well, attacking well, defending well. So, yeah, it's hard not to let the imagination run away at the moment.
Is this where it gets a little bit tough now? Because people look at Lincoln City as a difficult fixture. MK will be aware, won't they, of Michael Appleton and the start to the season that the Imps have had. So all of a sudden there becomes a little bit of pressure on games going forward.
Yeah, potentially yes and no. I think you look back to something like 2006-07 under John Schofield, where we came out with the blocks on fire and played some wonderful football, but arguably got found out post-Christmas. There is an element that might happen. I think this is a little bit different. And let's not forget that many pundits were building us up before the season started anyway. There was people putting us in the top 2, in the top 6. So I think it's when you've got Michael Appleton in charge, the secret is kind of out of the bag anyway. We're only really reaffirming the thoughts that other teams have. So, I think as long as we keep worrying about ourselves and taking each game as a time, it doesn't really matter what the other teams are thinking of us.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that Liverpool game later on in the show. Of course we are. But how important is it that today Michael and his squad put that to one side and everyone focuses on the job at hand?
Yeah, it's massively important. Look, football is all about the league. We all want to climb the leagues. We all want to finish higher in the leagues. That's bread and butter. And putting more points between us and that kind of bottom 8 or 9 is massively important, as we saw last year. Next week is it's a showpiece event. It's exciting. It's a bonanza, and it's going to garner the headlines. But when it's over, okay, we may get another tie. Who knows? We may face Arsenal. Arguably, that run will finish and we'll still be left with the league. So it's massively important to put that out of focus right now.
It is, but it's hard not to get carried away. It is such an exciting game to look forward to. The Premier League champions coming to the LNER Stadium. As I said, we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the show. So then, the Imps went to Valley Parade full of confidence, didn't they? And who could blame them? But not many would have predicted such an emphatic performance. Let's have a look at that fantastic 5 that they scored against Bradford City.
Look at your sunglasses.
Not a bad pre-match tune that either, was it? But more importantly, a sensational Imps performance, Gary. That is quite some statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you score 5 goals away from home, people are always going to sit up and take notice. And there was talk about how poor Bradford were at the back, but let's not take any credit away from them. Bradford had chances in the first half, probably controlled 30 minutes of the second half, and we had to work hard for the goals that we did score. So, yeah, I think it was a massive statement. I know Bradford City are League Two, but they'll be mid-table League Two, if not, it's kind of top 7. So, yeah, really, really good for confidence, I think, for the boys.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to ask about a couple of individual performances from that game in a second. Plenty of comments coming in, which is brilliant. I'll get to some of them now. Carl Beach, welcome to the show. He says, definitely hard not to get carried away after the start that we've made. Long way to go, though, but looks like Michael has built up a good squad up the Imps. Certainly so, Carl. Kev Barwise is with us as well. Afternoon, Sam and Gary, looking resplendent. Very kind of you, Kev. He says, if MK Dons play 3-5-2 like Bradford did, I fancy another quick counter-attacking performance by the Imps today. Very winnable. Great to hear your comments this afternoon. Please keep them coming in. I said I'd ask you about a couple of individual performances, Gary. I'll start with Harry Anderson because he was an absolute terror on that right-hand side, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I mean, I'm a huge Harry Anderson fan. I seem to say that about a lot of players at the moment. But what you see is what you get with Harry. He's very direct. We've always known him to be quick and strong. He offers a little bit of something different to some of our other wingers as well. He's not what I would class the fancy Dan winger who's all step-overs. He was really direct against Bradford. I mean, if you play 3-5-2, the wing-back has got to be on it. If you let H have space in behind, he's going to take advantage. And he did all evening. And whenever he needed to put the physical side of the game in, he did as well. So it's fantastic to see.
It feels like he's really kicked on. I think we've obviously seen him play with us when he came on loan from Peterborough, National League level. You might have thought that maybe he sort of found his level around sort of mid-league one side or something like that. But actually, he's taken it up a notch, hasn't he? Why do you think he's been able to do that?
Yeah, I think he has. I mean, let's face it, he is young, so he came to us as a teenager, so there was always going to be room for him to develop. I think he's got stronger. I think if you look back to the beginning of last season, we were kind of saying the same things, that Harry had kicked on. He scored against Rotherham, he scored against Everton, he had a really good start to the season. And then we changed manager and we kind of changed approach a little bit. And he didn't get left by the wayside, but he just began to kind of fade out, I think, a little. So probably he was at this stage last season. But he's worked hard all summer, quite clearly. Quite clearly has started cutting in a little bit more from outside as well. He was very much up and down, but I think now he comes inside more. I think he's becoming a little bit more aware of other responsibilities. And look, again, he's a good footballer. He came from a League One side. He played League One football, albeit a small amount before he joined us. Make no mistake about it, Harry Anderson's one of our key players, absolutely.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing plenty more of Harry Anderson throughout the course of the season. What about James Jones then? One of the new signings. He's slotted into that central midfield position brilliantly, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. I was really surprised because Crewe fans were saying that he was on the fringes there last season in League Two. You see how quickly he's settled for us. He's box-to-box man. He tracks back. He works incredibly hard. Look, people are going to talk about his goal, which was wonderful. I mean, what a strike. And he made it himself, really, as well. But they'll talk about his assist the week before against Oxford, which, again, was a wonderful free kick. I noted the goal for Anthony Scully, the second goal against Bradford. If you watch it, James Jones is involved in the build-up as well. If you're a midfielder that scores, assists, and makes assists, you've got triple threat there. I think, again, James Jones is one of the players that is going to become a fan's favourite, especially when we're in the stadium and we can see what he's doing on and off the ball at all times.
Go on then, let's talk about the Liverpool game. Great to welcome the Premier League champions to the LNER. Just such a shame, isn't it, that we won't be able to see a full LNER stadium?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've been a critic of the League Cup for many years, saying, you never get that money shot. There's only one or two teams you want to draw. You want to draw them at home. All the gods have aligned, bar the ones that allow us into the stadium. But that's from a fan's perspective. From a club perspective, this is a phenomenal draw because there will still be interest from commercial partners. There will still be the television money. There'll still be the kind of media frenzy. And if your club's name is up in lights, from an investor point of view, all of a sudden the club becomes available to them. So the likes of Clive on the board may well see this as a great advert as well. let's not forget 2016-17, that FA Cup run. We were able to spend in the second half of the season because of the cup run. So this vital injection of funds at this stage of the season, we may not immediately see the benefits, but going forward, I think that it will really benefit the club. And also, let's face it, when we get past Liverpool, it's Arsenal at home as well. So it's a double bubble.
Arsenal or Leicester, I believe. But either way, it'll be a brilliant game if the Imps can overcome Liverpool. Certainly so. So the Premier League champions and Jurgen Klopp coming to the LNER Stadium. But for now, it's all about the league, isn't it? So here is the best of last week's first EFL game when the Imps overcame Oxford.
That says I'm not done. I push my fingers into plug sockets to feel a buzz. Hold one moment, I'll follow you. Burn the iron way too soon. Something wrong with you, but it's not just a haircut, it's an attitude. There's a taste on my tongue that says I'm not done. I push my fingers into plug sockets to feel the buzz, and I'm too forgotten. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out.
Yeah, producer Charlie's picking some belting pre-match tunes, isn't he? Enjoyed that one. Gary, 2 goals, a clean sheet. That is an ideal start to a league campaign, isn't it?
It was a great day to be a Lincoln City fan, wasn't it? Oxford will be in the top 6, in my opinion, this season. We spoke about it pre-match last time out. I thought we were excellent in the first half. But what we really showed is what we've got without the ball. When we won the league title 2018-19, critics tell us that we won it because of what we did without the ball, not what we did with the ball. And I think that we showed a different side to Michael Appleton's approach on Saturday, with a little bit of help, obviously, from some big performances from key players.
Yeah, and one of those key players was actually Alex Palmer in goal. What a brilliant double save that was. Just how far can he go as a player, and how far could he maybe take the Imps?
Well, obviously Michael rates him incredibly highly. He told me earlier in the week he feels that he could well play Premier League. I think we've seen him now in a couple of games, and deep down, as a fan, when you see a goalkeeper that's going to go on something special. I remember watching Joe Hart play for Shrewsbury against Lincoln, and you knew at that point that he was going to play at the very highest level. Alex Palmer will as well. And we talk about the double save. It was a save early in the first half, which came from a shot from range, 20-odd yards out. It bounced right in front of him. 9 times out of 10, it bounces over an unsighted keeper. But he's got great reaction, and he's so big as well.
I think the other player that really stood out for me, and I believe he stood out for you as well, was TJ Ioma. Could you talk to us about him? And we've obviously gotten so used to, haven't we, seeing Neil Eardley on that right-hand side. But TJ seems to offer something a little bit different and perhaps something a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing to note is, remember, that was TJ Ioma's Football League debut. He played a little bit of senior football. That's his Football League debut, just as it was Sean Rowan's. And I think what was surprising is it didn't look like it, and nobody made anything of it at all. He looked every inch a League One fullback, if not better. You mentioned there about Neil Eardley. I certainly wouldn't want to make this sound detrimental to Neil. You knew what you were going to get with Neil. He wasn't the steady 7, he was a 7, 8 at times. He had good delivery. But TJ, I think, is bigger, bulkier. arguably, if you got hit on the break and TJ was one of the men coming back, you feel that he could drop into the kind of the centre half role with ease, whereas I felt Neil was very much a dedicated fullback. In terms of pace, TJ certainly got it, maybe a little bit more power as well. And you see when he's on the ball, he has that poise that comes from coming through an academy, a top flight academy, and obviously for winning the World Cup with the England under-17s. He's got a certain amount of grace to his play. You don't often hear that about fullbacks, but here's a player that can play fullback, can play centre back, and he shows it in his performances. Really exciting to see him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Great start to the EFL campaign for him. Let's get to a couple of your comments then. Ian Hodson says, very used to seeing Erdley and Harry working together. Seems to get played in from midfield now, not from chasing down the line to a longer ball. Yeah, talking tactically, like it, Ian. Alex Webber, hi guys. It'll be a good test today. Two footballing sides that played out from the back. Do you think that it'll be a tight game today? I'll ask Gary about that shortly because we've got plenty to get on in this show. And David Ward has commented. Hi, David, saying, looking forward to today's game, hoping for at least a point, but looking forward to Thursday's game with them playing Arsenal and Chelsea, under 23s at Wigan on Tuesday. What kind of team do you feel that we'll be facing on Thursday night? Yeah, that is a big question, David, and a question that I'll certainly be asking Gary later on in the show, because it's always difficult, isn't it, when you want to see some stars come to the LNER Stadium, but also you want to think that you can maybe go and get a result. So I'm going to ask Gary about that later. Let's hear from Michael Appleton now, because he's been giving his pre-match press conference at the EPC training centre yesterday. He was asked, first of all, by Rob Makepeace about injury news.
Yeah, from midweek, luckily, the lads who had a couple of little knocks and bruises, they seem to be fine.
Good, and that must be really crucial at the start of the season when you maybe expect to pick up a couple of injuries here and there, whether that is knocks, whether that is muscle strains.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously we went through a spell pre-season for about a couple of weeks where people were picking up little balls of hamstrings and quads, but hopefully, luckily, we seem to have come through that, and we're quite healthy, really, I suppose, going into the game tomorrow.
On MK Dons, before they've been a side, especially under Paul Tisdale, that likes to play it around the back, that likes to play pretty football. Have they developed it all under Russell Martin?
In the same sort of mould as what Paul was doing previously. He's continuing to keep to that theme in terms of patient play and play the right way. I think that similar to Oxford last week, they're happy to keep the ball and be patient and wait for the right opportunity to play through you. I'm more than happy to, at times allow them to build from the back. I think we've got to get that balance right between looking when we press and when we don't press, and I think respect, what the opposition are good at, but at the same time be aware of what we're really, really good at as well. So it'll be a bit of a game of chance at times. I think they have developed from last season. I think they're a better side than last season. I think they've got more of a threat, certainly, going forward, and they've got a lot more legs in the team as well.
And those type of sides, are they the kind of sides that actually you're going to benefit from this season because of the way you want to play?
Hopefully, possibly. Like I said, I do think they'll be much better, and I think they'll finish much higher up the league than they did last year. They look more of a threat in the glips and the games that we've seen so far. It's one of them where I do feel that they're a better side. And you look at the game that they had last week against Doncaster, even going behind, once they got the goal late on as they did, they could have actually gone on and won it as well. And I think that was a little bit of theme of the game, really. So we're under no illusions. We know it's going to be a really, really tough game. I do believe that. And if we can take something from the game, it's going to be a really positive thing.
Yeah, Michael Appleton speaking to BBC Radio Lincolnshire's Rob Makepeace there. Gary, you've spent a bit of time with Michael this week. You've got some really great interviews out of him for the StayToWest.net. Just talk to me a little bit about that. And I believe that Michael approached you about doing those interviews as well.
Yes, he did, yeah. So I got a message from Michael a couple of weeks ago, and I think what he was looking for, he knows he's assembled a decent squad here. Because we can't go to games and we can't do the kind of meet and greets at community days, I think there's a feeling around the club that potentially there might be still a feeling of kind of feeling apart from the squad. So yeah, I went in to have a chat with him. Look, he felt very much to me like a proud man showing off his children or something like that. You know, when he was talking about some of these players, certainly some of the younger players that he brought through as well. And there was an immense amount of pride. There was an honesty. It seems to me that honesty is something that really runs through the squad at the moment, both in terms of the messages that Michael deliver, and in terms of the kind of the application and the attitude of the players as well. So, you know, I understand how fans feel that they're not that close to the squad at the moment. I understand not going to games kind of has an impact on that. So I think that hopefully, kind of, we've been able to close that gap just a tiny bit.
Talk to us about the traffic light system that he mentioned in one of the articles that you wrote. I think it was with regards to the attacking players, but I thought that sounded really interesting.
Yeah, the way I understood it, it kind of covers the whole squad in that if a player makes a bad pass, then they're on a red. So make sure that their next pass is an amber or a green. If they make 2 bad passes, your third pass has got to be a green. And I think what he was suggesting there is players who want to make an exciting, extravagant pass. If they get that extravagant pass wrong, make sure that your next one's a little bit more reserved. Make sure it's a little not 10, 15 yards in, not 50-yard raking ball. Because if you're a player and you make 1, 2, 3 mistakes, then you're having a bad performance. And he mentioned particularly Zach El-Bazedi, immensely talented winger. Apparently, though, he lets the mistakes kind of build up on himself and he beats himself up. And that was why Michael said, I tell him about the traffic light system. Keep it simple the third time and you'll start to build confidence again.
Great stuff indeed. Yeah, Gary's interviews with Michael Appleton available on the stacywest.net right now. Well worth a read indeed. Okay, well, let's hear from Liam Bridcut now, because of course he's missed the majority of the season. He got 10 minutes against Bradford midweek, but he's back and hoping to be a part of the starting lineup. We'll find that out in the next sort of 6 or 7 minutes or so. But he was on press duty as well. Let's hear what he had to say.
Just like I said, with the lockdown and everything else, it's been a long wait for games, and obviously getting injured quite early is always tough to take. But yeah, I was excited to be back in with the lads, and like you said, getting some minutes under my belt now.
It was interesting watching you on Tuesday night. I think the amount of times you used to walk past the dugout, walk past the managers just to go, yeah, I'm ready to come on, I'm ready. You just seemed like you was raring to go and get out on that pitch. Yeah,
I'm like a little kid. I think the older I've got, the worse I've got in terms of itching to play more. Yeah, I was there. The manager knew I was there if he needed me at some point. And I think he had that in the back of his mind, that he knew if the game got maybe difficult or not so much difficult in our case where we was ahead, but it was just good to get me some minutes before going into the weekend, really.
You've been involved in some big games in your career in the past. There's a huge game coming up next Thursday that we all know about. How important is it for some of the experienced players who have had those big games to keep the focus on what's going on Saturday rather than what's going on next Thursday?
For me, Thursday is not a big game for us. I think the Saturday one is a bigger game. For me, the Thursday game is a treat. It's a treat for the lads in terms of lads what haven't played against a Premier League opposition or the best team in the world at the minute. It's just going to enjoy the occasion and learn and testing yourself up against some of the best players in the world. So for me, Saturday is the most important game, and that's a bigger game for me.
Yeah, great to have the captain, Liam Bridcut, back fit and available to play if required. Okay, so we've chatted, of course, a lot about Lincoln City. I haven't mentioned too much about the opponents today. MK Dons, delighted to say that MK Dons blogger, content creator, Max Salt joins us live from Milton Keynes, I presume. Max,
Yeah.
What are your thoughts ahead of this game then?
Well, it's going to be a tight one, obviously. Lincoln, good size. You have started off the season quite well, win against Bradford and against Oxford. To be honest, it's going to be, I don't know really. I think I'm going to go for a draw in this game, 1-1.
A draw, is that because of the way that Lincoln have started? Because I imagine normally Milton Keynes Dons fans at home would normally back themselves to get all 3 points.
Yeah, Lincoln obviously very strong sides, and yeah, it's going to be a tight one. Obviously the counter-attacking football. Obviously, as you said earlier on the show, we play the same kind of football as Oxford, so if you get us on the counter, then it could be 3-4-0. But I'm going to go for 1-1 if we defend rightly.
Give us the lowdown then on some of the key players to look out for and I follow today.
Okay, so we picked up Scott Fraser from Burton on a free transfer, very good signing. And I'm not sure if he's going to start today. He hasn't been training much, but if he does, then definitely one to watch out for. Youngster Sam Nombe up front, if he put his chances away as well, then very key player. And keeper Lee Nichols, he's quite good, a bit like Alex Palmer, two very good keepers.
What about the reaction from the fans then this season? Where do you see MK finishing? What's a realistic target for you?
Well, for me, it's got to be mid-table. Same as probably Lincoln. Lincoln could push for playoffs, but for us, I'm going to say about 11th, 12th. That's probably a realistic target. Building on.
Like it. Yeah. Well, let's bring in our EFL expert as well, because Gary, whilst writing about the Imps, also writes about a number of different clubs. Gary, what have you made of MK so far? And if you've got any questions to put to Max as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know a couple of MK fans quite well, and I know that there was a little bit of uncertainty over the summer at some of the transfer business. Max, I'm quite interested in what you think about replacing Reece Healy. Do you envisage another Steining coming in a little bit later on in the window? And if so, does that make it a good time for us to be facing Milton Keynes?
Well, with Reece obviously going to Toulouse, our fans were quite outraged in him leaving because probably arguably the second best striker in the league last year with the goal-to-game ratio. We do need a replacement in my opinion, but obviously it is going to be a good time to face us because we have had, obviously against Doncaster we had about 16 shots, just couldn't put a chance away, but if Reece was there he would have. So yeah, I'd say a good time to face us without a striker like him. Yeah. So
Waddle, who are we saying that's going to score for MK Dons then? Who does Alex Palmer need to keep his eye on today?
Probably if Scott Fraser starts, if he starts.
Scott Fraser. Okay, like it. Well, Max, very much appreciate your time. Enjoy the game. I know you won't be there, but enjoy it on iFollow. I hope you've enjoyed the show from a Lincoln City perspective as well. But thanks very much for your thoughts. Okay, let's go to a couple of comments then, because we're about 2 minutes away from today's live team news, which I will bring you right bang on 2 o'clock. We're going back with some Liverpool questions coming in, saying, are we going to be playing our strongest team against Liverpool, Gary, as well? That's one of the interesting things that we've seen so far. A lot of different managers have changed it up a lot, but Michael has kept a fairly sort of similar team throughout. So against Liverpool, do you actually foresee some changes?
Do you know, it's a tough one because from a kind of a squad point of view, from Michael's point of view, it might be nice to freshen it up a little bit with MK Dons and then Charlton, 2 games there in the space of just over a week, and they're big games for us. But then how would you tell one of the players that's played 4 or 5 games and has been really good all the way from the beginning of the season that he's now got to sit out the opportunity to come up against the Premier League champions? And players like Origi, who will be likely playing for Liverpool, talking about Champions League finalist scorer. How do you tell Lewis Monsma, we're going to just sit you out with this one and bring Joe Walsh in and ease him back in? So a bit of a quandary really for Michael, I think.
Yeah, just finally on this particular topic, are you one of those that would like to see the Premier League club bring their biggest stars, or do you actually take a bit of confidence when you see a team sheet from a Premier League side come and you see a lot of under-23 players and think, actually, we could go and get a result there? Which sort of camp are you in with that one?
Oh, I'm going to get splinters, Sam, because I'll sit on the bench. Last season we played Everton. They brought a relatively strong side, and we more than matched them for a period of time. But progression would be nice. Now we know the draw, as you correctly pointed out earlier. Leicester or Arsenal are both big clubs, both previous Premier League winners. So if Liverpool brought an under-23 side, you think, hang on, we might win this, then it's great. But if they bring an under-23 side and you actually lose 3-0, it could have the opposite effect and could negatively affect you going through into the season. So as strong a side as possible, but it's their prerogative who they bring, I suppose.
It could get very, very tasty indeed, that Carabao Cup draw, couldn't it? Okay, well, it is now 2 o'clock, which means one thing and one thing only. It's time for today's Lincoln City team news. So in goal, we have Alex Palmer. He retains his place. Then it's TJ Ioma, Lewis Monsma, Adam Jackson and Sean Rowan. They make up the back 4. Liam Bridcut, Conor McGrandles and James Jones make up the midfield 3. And then up front, it's Harry Anderson, George Grant and Tom Hopper on the bench, we've got Ross, Walsh, Melbourne, Eden, Morton, Scully, Archibald. So that is your Lincoln City starting 11. Do get your comments in to us with your reaction to that, both on Twitter, Facebook, and the club's YouTube channels as well. We want to hear your thoughts. Gary, I make that 3 changes for the Imps. Anything that surprised you there? What do you make of it overall?
Very few surprises, I think. If I'd been asked to call the 11, it would have been more or less, I think, spot on. Fully expected Liam Bridcut to come back in. Look, he's been brought here as a leader. He's fit, he plays. That was always going to necessitate somebody up front moving to one side for George Grant. So Anthony Scully has had a really solid start to the season, may consider himself unlucky. But I think that's just reflective of the competition for places that we have. When you look at left back as well, young Sean Rowan, if you'd asked me 6 weeks ago, I would have probably expected him to be on loan in the National League. His development is phenomenal, and he looks now like he might be the first choice left back, which is really interesting.
Yeah, how exciting is it that those two players could keep on pushing each other to the point where they're both just peaking far more than what we might have anticipated at the start of the season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Sean Rowan is, he's had such a good start to the season. And Michael did sort of warn me the other night, we need to just settle him down a little bit and don't build him up. He will have a bad spell. But when he sees himself coming back in for important games, and the league is bread and butter. So for me, this is the starting 11, and the changes that were made on Tuesday night were just blooding players that are almost on the threshold there as well. When you look at Callum Morton, another player who obviously had a good game, I felt, on Tuesday night, really, really highly rated. So it's a big game for Tom Hopper today, because Tom's got to produce as well. He's there to score goals. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he reacts.
But one thing I've really enjoyed from Tom Hopper's performances so far is just how well he holds the ball up. That seems to be a part of his game that he's really improved. I know Michael spoke about it after the Crew game last week, that actually towards the back end of last season and just before lockdown, he noticed that Tom's build-up play, as well as scoring a few goals in there as well, was really handy. And having obviously George Grant, Harry Anderson either side, something like that is perfect. We've talked about Liverpool, but actually it's almost a bit of a Firmino role in what he's trying to do there a little bit.
Yeah, I think with Tom, we've got to remember he only played 5 games last season, and I think people kind of assumed that he had played a few more, and it was tougher for him to settle. In actual fact, he had 3 games where I thought he was okay, but you expect that from a new signing. What you get with Tom as well, it's that age-old saying: whenever he wins a free kick, you'll hear somebody say he used all his experience for that. Tom knows when to be bumped. He knows when to be knocked. I'm not saying he dives; he absolutely doesn't. But if there's contact and it's sufficient, he knows to go down rather than try and stay on his feet. I think the free kick against Oxford was a classic example. The challenge came in. He was entitled to go down. He's a very clever centre forward. But a number 9's there to score goals. And I think all of his other plays fantastic. If he lays goals on, fair enough. But the fans will always judge him on his goals. I personally, I think Tom will be a big player for us this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to a couple of your comments then, because I have asked for your thoughts on today's starting 11. Dane says, good lineup, really strong bench, exciting game to come. Ian says, good to have strong attacking options from the bench this season if we need to chase a goal. And a question from the Red Imposter on Twitter. He says, from an attacking point of view, where might a potential new player fit in? Gary, really good question there from the Red Imposter, although we can see a picture of him, so he can't be that much of an imposter. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that one, Gary?
In terms of first team, where would you fit another player in at the moment? I mean, it's a fair point, because with Liam Bridcut's come into the midfield, so we've had to reshuffle straight away. If we maybe switch the formation around a little bit, Michael preferred kind of a 4-4-1-1 last season, so the new attacking player might play the 10 role as we describe it, because we don't really have that at the moment. What we're playing at the moment is a holding midfielder and then 2 8s behind the front 3. So arguably a new player actually doesn't come in to replace, he comes in to offer not just attacking options in terms of like for like, but attacking options in terms of how we set up. So I would expect any player that comes in would be a number 10 with the ability to overlap, with the ability to give us an option to go 4-4-2 as well as 4-4-1-1. But it's great that we're talking about a player coming in as kind of a luxury rather than a necessity. How many times have we gone into the final weeks of the transfer window thinking we still need a piece of the jigsaw? We don't. We've got the complete jigsaw. What we're looking for now is extra pieces just in case, and that's great.
Certainly so, Gary. Great stuff. Okay, well, I'm delighted to say that we can go live to Stadium MK, and I believe that we can speak to a first-team player. That first-team player is Zach Elbouzedi. Zach, first of all, how are you settling into life at Lincoln City?
Yeah, I'm good. Obviously, it was stop-start at the start, but now I'm in a good flow of things and feel like I'm in a good place, so I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I enjoyed your pre-match press conference the other day where you spoke about Lincoln as being like something off Harry Potter. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it's just, the buildings and that I like something out of Diagon Alley and Harry Potter. And that was the first thing my brother said when he come over, so it was just something that stuck in my head.
And what about the people? Have you had a chance to meet any of the people? I know it's difficult at the moment with COVID-19, but they're a passionate bunch here.
Yeah, obviously, a few of the games I spoke to a few people, and I got a picture with, I think it's the Rubber Duck as well, so yeah, it's a good fan base, and that was something obviously that attracted me here as well. They're vocal, they're one of the most vocal fan bases that I've seen, and they're passionate, which is what you want.
What about the start to the season then, Zach? Because I imagine that one of the reasons that you joined this club is because that you were confident in what Michael was trying to achieve, confident in the squad. But we as Lincoln City fans have been so impressed with the start that has been made.
Yeah, definitely. I think last season you could sort of see the stuff that we were trying to do, but obviously it was going to take time to happen and to get a full pre-season in with the manager. I think you can see that everyone's sort of comfortable playing the system that he wants to play, and it's shown in the performances.
Yeah, what about rotation then? Because this season, more than ever, I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that if you're not a part of the starting 11, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get a look in. There are games to be played, especially if Lincoln can continue to do so well in the cup competitions as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously if we do go on a cup run, you've got like maybe 50, 60 games in the season in a shorter amount of time than it would have been last season. So obviously you're going to have to rotate the squad, and I think we have players that are comfortable playing in all the positions, which is important. And I think if someone does come in, it doesn't weaken the team, it can strengthen it. So I think we have a strong squad, and we're set up well for the season.
Yeah, just a final one from me then. You're there at Stadium MK. It looks like a nice sunny day. I wish we were all there as well. Massive stadium. Of course, no fans are going to be there, but it's going to be a tough game for the Imps, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. We've watched some video, and I think they're known for playing nice football, and they do pop it about a bit, and they play some nice football. So it should be a good game, and confident that we can get the 3 points.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you very much for your time. We'll let you get off and get back to the rest of the squad and enjoy that Milton Keynes sun as well.
Thank you. Cheers.
Brilliant stuff. Great to hear the thoughts of Zach Elbouzedi there, describing Lincoln as being something off Harry Potter. That's not something you hear every day as well, but I think he's got something in that as well. So I like it. I like what he's done there. Well, let's bring Gary back in, because Gary, what have you made of Zach so far?
Well, I thought last season, Zach dropped into the occasional game and he looked like he was struggling to settle. But I think we saw that with Tom Pett a couple of years ago as well. It's really tough, I think, for a player to join the squad in January and hit the ground running, especially when you're coming from, I believe it was Waterford in Ireland. It's kind of a different level. He's really impressed me in pre-season. He was somebody that I felt had a lot to prove. And for me, in some of the early games, he proved it. He was really good against Salford. I think it was Scunthorpe the other game, where I felt that he was getting behind, he was getting involved in the link-up play rather than just trying to get a run with it. I was quite surprised that he hasn't been closer to the first-team squad. But then again, it's reflective of that competition for places, isn't it? So he's one that I think there's still more to see. He will get his chances. The games are coming thick and fast, so he's just got to seize on that and show us what he can do.
Yeah, Gary, great stuff. We're going to leave you there for now. We're going to come back to you before the end of the show. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to bring you, Lincoln City fans, the MK Dons team, because you might not have had a chance, as I nearly knocked my microphone off there. Welcome to home broadcasting. You might not have had a chance to see the MK Dons team. If you haven't, this is it. So in goal, it's Lee Nichols. Dean Lewington, who Imps fans will know well, is the captain. Regan Poole, Bailey Cargill, David Kasumu, Carlton Morris, Warren O'Hora, Joe Mason, Daniel Harvey, Jordan Houghton, and Callum Britton. So that is the MK Dons starting lineup. And you know the Lincoln City starting lineup because you can see it below my screen. Right now, Okay, well, I tell you what, the graphics come in. I'll read it out for you anyway. Let's get that graphic back in, and I'll read the Lincoln City team, which is Alex Palmer, TJ Ioma, Lewis Monsma, Jackson, Rowan, Bridcut, McGrandles, Jones, Grant, Anderson, and Hopper. On the bench, it's Ross, Walsh, Melbourne, Eden, Morton, Scully, Archibald. So that is your starting 11 for Lincoln City. 3 changes that Michael Appleton has made. Right. I promised you that we'd be going stateside on today's Matchday Live show, and that's exactly what we'll be doing now, because I'm pleased to say that the North American imp, David Johnson, I've said that right, David Johnson or David Johnston?
You're right, Sam. How are you doing?
Welcome to the show. First of all, what time is it there?
It is 8:12 in the morning. I just got off work. I work night shift, so I'm about 14 hours.
Wow, so you're ready for a sleep?
I am, but I'm staying up till 11 to watch the Imps play, so.
Great stuff. Well, first of all, why Lincoln City? What was it about the Imps that attracted you?
I mean, whenever I play super similar story to Yael's, I know he was with Michael Horton on the radio the other day, which was on the broadcast during the game last time. Very similar story. Discovered him through a video game. Fell in love with the club over the course of the last couple of years. Really dove kind of headfirst into it with the start of last season. So I'm really this season and last season are the kind of the peak of my fandom with it. But if you follow me on Twitter, that's all I talk about. It's 100% of my interest right now in life.
No, he's a great follow. Just I tell you what, whilst we're here, tell us what the Twitter handle is. Is it imps_NA? Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Imps_NA. So if you're looking for more Lincoln City follows on Twitter, give David Johnson a follow. Imps_NA. It's the North American Imps Association. David, what about the start to the season then? You must be thoroughly delighted with what you've
it's
seen.
insane. The mentality the team has shown, I think, is Gary touched on that also in a live feed yesterday. He does the Facebook videos, but he touched on that, and it's really the mentality and how we've kind of attacked the season to start. So we kind of struggled a little bit against Salford, but you still saw the chances that we made. We had 6 or 7 chances, and that game could have easily, we could have had 3 goals and 1. But I don't think we've looked poor in any game. We were, we won against Crew. I think we level against Crew and won, or we came back from a goal down and won, and then kept our cool throughout penalties, which is another nod to the mentality. But I think the team is really doing everything Michael. If Michael had a checklist of what he would like to have happen, I think he's ticked every single thing with the summer signings and with how the team is performing so far.
Yeah, David, we've got some great comments coming in. The Mexicano imp says, "Hola, David, ¿cómo estás? Greetings from Mexico." I'm sure we'll be getting the Mexican imp on the Matchday Live show at some stage as well. Ian says, "This is why football is great, the universal language." Certainly so. Imps North American squad. Carl says, "Good lad, David." And Tony says, "Welcome stateside at Imps." David, what has the reaction been like from the Lincoln City fans ever since you've joined this club as an honorary supporter?
Amazing. I mean, I've had, I think, 3 people ask for my address to send me artwork and different things. So as far as the community goes, this is I couldn't be more impressed with the Lincoln City fan base. It's been incredible. I mean, I've had several conversations with a couple of the people who work at the club with the staff, which and now this, and I mean, this is amazing. Like what other people get to do stuff like this? I mean, I'm 4,000 miles away, and the people accept me like I live a block away. So it's been amazing.
And you're rocking the away shirt there as well. Yeah. Give us a full shot of it. Yeah, and I know you mentioned on the Imps website that actually the jerseys was something that you were really taken by, and actually one of the reasons behind why you chose Lincoln.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, really, but whenever I play whatever football game, I want to find a club that I'm gonna enjoy staring at for 12 or 15 seasons or however long I play with them. So to me, it was always important to find a club that had a decent looking kit. So Lincoln City was one that really appealed to me. And whenever I played, the first time that I played, it was I think the 17 season, I think. So we had 3 kits that were real nice. So that seems kind of silly, but that was actually a deciding factor in why I picked them as a team to use on the game. But it was 100% the squad, and reading up about Lincoln and the history and stuff like that is what drew me into it.
Brilliant stuff. Just finally, have you had a chance to come over to Lincoln then, or are you planning to do so in the future? Again, I know it's tough at the moment.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure Americans are allowed to travel over there right now. So
tough at the moment, but at some stage, I guess it has to be on your bucket list.
It's at the very, very top of it. I mean, I work a very time-consuming job. I work roughly 70 to 80 hours a week. I have 2 little kids and a wife, so a trip over there is going to be very expensive. So it's going to be something that me and my wife would have to sit down and really try to figure out. But it's definitely something that will be happening, and I look forward to it. I can't wait.
Just finally, then, give us a score prediction and scorer prediction today. Then
a 2-0 with a brace from Hopper.
Love it. Straight to the point. No thinking there needed. David, thank you very much for your time. We'll let you get off. Go and enjoy the game. That's David Johnson there, the Chief Operating Officer of the North American Imps. I've given him a massive title there, but he deserves it because he's supporting Lincoln from 4,500 miles away. Great stuff. Gary, I'll bring you back in because that is quite something, isn't it? In terms of support, I know he's an avid reader of the Stacey West as well, but it just shows you the power of this football club and the fans and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting story because actually I used to play Championship Manager when Lincoln weren't on it, and I used to pick teams for their kits as well. It was always Crystal Palace, red and blue. But, you know, it's absolutely brilliant to see. I mean, David, he comes across as a lovely chap. He's so involved in everything. And he says that the fan base make him feel like he's just a block away. But I think sometimes from his assessments of games, from the way that he sees things, from the way that he discusses the game, he feels like he could be sat next to me every week as well. He really understands football. I write a lot of articles for America, and obviously you have to always use the word soccer. And there's it's viewed quite differently over there. David gets it. He feels like an English fan inside and out, the way he talks about it. I think that's impressive.
Let's get back to today's game then. I read out the MK Dons team there. As I said, I know that, of course, you focus on Lincoln City as you do, but you've got your EFL knowledge. With that in mind, what have you seen from their starting 11? Any surprises there? Any reaction from the fans, do you think?
Well, first of all, Sam Nombi isn't playing. Max picked him up as a potential goal scorer, I think. And I don't think Scott Fraser was in as well. I may have missed that. So that's quite interesting. They'll go with Carlton Morris and potentially Joe Mason up front. In a kind of a double-pronged attack. Jordan Houghton's playing. Really like Jordan. He's been there for quite a while now, a holding midfielder, and he's certainly competent. And Dean Lewington, I mean, you've got to mention Dean Lewington. The third time we ever played MK Dons, I think, was around 05, 06 or 06, 07. Lewington played from there. I mean, this guy has got longevity oozing out of every pore. As I understand it, he's moved from left back to the centre of defence, but he's certainly a seasoned campaigner. And if he is playing in the centre of defence, his battle with Tom Hopper would be fascinating.
Yeah, I think we've got some pictures live from Stadium MK there. We can possibly cross the Stadium MK and just have a look at the lads warming up if the Wi-Fi will allow us. So that is the Lincoln City boys lining up there at Stadium MK. It is quite some stadium, isn't it, Gary? We're going to give fans a bit of a treat at the end of this show because they can be reminded of something quite special. But Gary, have you been to Stadium MK? What was it like? It's a big ground for that level, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a big ground for that level. Remember, MK Dons had the 5th highest average attendance in our division last season, but the ground still felt empty. That's not a dig. That's not kind of any football banter. That's fact. You get kind of 8,000, 9,000 in there and it still doesn't feel full. It feels like it should be hosting football higher up. I'm not going to get into the politics of MK Dons, that's for another day. But in terms of standalone grounds, it's a really, really strong ground. What it does do, though, is if you get a lot of away fans, they're all condensed in one place, as we saw back in 2018-19. they can then make you feel like the home team when you travel there. So the big ground can work against them.
Yeah, where do you think MK will be looking to finish this season then?
Well, I actually thought Max was quite optimistic when he was talking kind of mid-table, 11th or 12th. I know Michael was talking them up as well. And I look at a lot of League One teams, I look at a lot of League One reaction. I actually think anything kind of above the bottom 6 or 7 would be an adequate finish for them. I think they've had a really tough summer. I don't think the manager knows his best 11 as yet. I think that they're probably 6 to 8 months behind us in terms of their development of the Russell Martin. So I think they'll be looking to survive.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let me just run you through the Lincoln City team news once again. Then we're without Alan Long this week, but we'll be delighted to hear the dulcet tones of Alan when we return back to the LNER Stadium next week. It's Alex Palmer, TJ Ioma, Lewis Monsmer, Adam Jackson, Sean Rowan, Liam Bridcut comes back into the side, having only played 10 minutes so far this season. Great to see Liam back and captaining this side. Then it's Conor McGrandles, James Jones, George Grant, Harry Anderson and Tom Hopper on the bench. It's Ethan Ross, Joe Walsh, Max Melbourne, Tayo Eden, Morton, Scully and Archibald as well. Gary, one thing that I know you flagged up to me was actually seeing Theo Archibald back on the bench. I don't think we've discussed him. Delighted to see him back involved.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Theo's a player who was linked with us for a long while. I think I first read that in March. Done a lot of extensive research on Theo, watched a lot of his videos, really highly rated Celtic, came down to Brentford, suffered some personal issues which affected his spell at Brentford. For me, he then showed real character by stepping into Macclesfield, because when you've come from that background, he might have been able to secure a slightly more cushy role. Instead, he's gone somewhere where he's got to be the big dog. And he really stood out for Macclesfield. Chatting to Michael earlier in the week, he said that Theo had a tendency to try and force himself onto the Macclesfield games and was kind of prominent for them. He's arrived here not quite up to speed in terms of match fitness. I know Michael sounds really excited about Theo. Naturally left-sided, runs at players, looking to get past players. And Michael's exact words, I used it in the headline, was he should be playing at a bigger club for us. He should be playing at a higher level. He isn't, but if he has a good run of form with us, he could well be. He's one that slipped under the radar at the moment, but I think he's one to keep an eye on. Yeah,
great pictures of Alex Palmer warming up there. If we can just see those again, because it gives fans an idea of the sort of warm-up that he'll be doing before today's game. Got a great angle there of him. And we mentioned him before, Gary, but look, we've had some excellent keepers for Lincoln City over the years. We talk about Alan Marriott going back 10 years ago. Then we had the great Paul Farman that did wonders for us in the National League. We had Josh Vickers, did brilliantly too. But Alex Palmer just seems like a new beast, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. I think if you look back over the last couple of years, there has been a trend for really top quality keepers to leave Premier League clubs or Championship clubs on loan and have a huge impact. I'm talking Sam Johnson, I'm talking Dean Henderson, to a lesser extent, I'm talking Kieran O'Hara. And these keepers, young keepers, were always tended to be overlooked a little bit. You look at Rob Birch when he came to us. He'd been at Spurs, he hadn't had the right sort of loan spells, because loan spells always used to be like short, 1 month, 3 months. It wasn't enough time for a keeper to settle. Obviously, now you can go for the full year's loan. I think the likes of Alex Palmer, the likes of Dean Henderson really take advantage of that. I think he's very different to anything we've had in the past. That's no slight whatsoever on Mazza, who's my all-time favourite goalkeeper. But Palmer is just big. He's just imposing. And for a young man, he seems to marshal his defence very well. He's a huge capture for us.
Gary, let's finish with your scorer predictions today then for the Imps.
Well, I can't actually remember what I said on the podcast, so I may be contradicting myself somewhat. I'm normally the kiss of death, but I'm going to go for a Lincoln City win 2-1. Quite fancy Harry to pop up with one, and something tells me that James Jones might get one as well. Yeah, and we'll be a fool to bet against you after the start of the Lincoln City mate. Gary Hutchinson, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to seeing plenty more of you on Matchday Live, Lincoln City, throughout the course of this season. That does just about bring us to the end of today's show. A reminder, of course, that you can get your match pass now on iFollow, www.weareimps.com/iFollow. If you do so now, you'll be able to hear all the build-up with Michael Horton and Steve Thompson on BBC Radio Lincolnshire. Some brilliant commentary from them throughout the years, and I'm sure it will be another great game this afternoon. But for now, we'll leave you with something a little bit special
when 5K went to MK. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.